Hey guys, have you ever wondered how Whis became an angel? Did he have to go through special training in his childhood to become an angel? This story will tell how the beginning of Whis' trajectory to becoming an angel was, where Whis revealed that he was once a mortal before becoming one of the most powerful beings in existence, and the strongest in his universe and among his angel brothers. So grab a bucket of popcorn and soda and come with me, and of course don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Well, without further ado, let's get started. In the 6th universe. Currently in the 6th universe, more precisely on the planet of the God of Destruction, it was possible to see Goku, Vegeta, Whis, Beerus, Champa, and Vados. They were all eating some food in that place, from the 6th universe. And Goku and Vegeta were in the place because Champa had called them to be able to try some foods in his universe, as they were similar to the 7th universe, and Champa wanted to know if the foods from his universe were better or not than the food from his twin brother's universe. Champa said, "So be honest, this cold food is much better than what you call ice cream in the 7th universe, isn't it?" asked the God of Destruction from the 6th universe, hopefully while looking at both Saiyans who were eating the cold food. Vegeta said, "It's not bad, but I prefer our universe's ice cream. I think the food in this universe is kind of bland, colorless, and tasteless, whereas our universe's food is sweeter, colder, colorful, depending on what you want, and very tasty," said the Prince of Saiyans after eating a little ice cream from the 6th universe, that in his opinion, this ice cream was too bland, and that made Champa upset for losing against his brother who now had a satisfied smile on his face. Goku said, "I was never a big fan of ice cream, but I know that our universe is sweet, and this one is a little sour. I didn't like the ice cream in this universe very much." The Saiyan spoke while looking at Champa. But even though he didn't like that cold food, the Saiyan ended up eating everything that had been offered to him. Whis said, "It seems that even though you didn't like this ice cream very much, you ended up eating all the ice cream they gave you," said the angel of the 7th universe in a fun tone, making everyone laugh a little, and Goku ended up getting embarrassed and took one of his hands to the back of his neck. Vegeta said, "You can't complain about Goku, Whis, because you also said you didn't like that ice cream very much, and ended up taking about 3 full bowls. It seems that the stomach of an angel is bigger than that of a Saiyan, and as a Saiyan I can say that our belly is quite big," said the Prince of Saiyans while looking at the angel of his universe, who was also the master of both Saiyans. After that, everyone started talking and eating various foods that Champa offered. But during the time that everyone was eating, Goku ended up being intrigued by Whis and Vados, and the fact that they were both angels. And as Whis had said in the past, angels couldn't have children, but even if they were related to another angel or a god of destruction. Goku said, "Whis, can I ask you a very personal question?" asked the Saiyan, attracting everyone's attention, mainly Whis, who was his focus at that moment. Whis said, "Mr. Goku wants to ask me a question that apparently has nothing to do with fights or any kind of training, is that right?" "Well, ask whatever you want, and depending on the question, I'll answer you in the best way possible," said the angel while looking at the Saiyan, and as that aroused the curiosity of those who were there, they paid close attention to what Son Goku was going to ask Whis. Goku said, "Whis, you were once a mere mortal in the past, before becoming an angel. Or were you born an angel, and having all that power you have? Because in the past I remember Chi-Chi asking you if you yourself, being an angel, and having to work for the God of Destruction of the 7th universe, if you would ever want to have a child. But you replied that you would, even though you couldn't, because angels can't have children. Not because they are forbidden, but because you really can't have children. So how did you, Vados, and all the other angels become angels?" asked the Saiyan to Whis, and such a question caught everyone off guard, including Whis and Vados himself, because he knew Whis better than anyone else, and knew about his past. Beerus said, "That's interesting. I never got around to wondering if you were once a mere mortal, Miss. I know that all the gods of destruction were mortal before being chosen by the angel, or by the ancient gods of destruction to inherit their positions. But I never thought about the possibility that you angels were also mortal, before being angels and children of the High Priest," said the god of destruction of the 7th universe, who was now very interested in the history of Whis. If Son Goku's theory is right, because Whis could have been created by the High Priest himself using some method that only he knew. Whis spoke. I really was a mortal millennia ago, even before the first god of destruction of the seventh universe was chosen by me. But that was so long ago that I had even forgotten that I was once immortal," said the angel of the seventh universe, with one of his hands on his chin in a thoughtful way, since it had been thousands of years since he had been immortal, and Whis didn't remember much about that time, when he barely knew about the gods of destruction, and much less about the other universes. Champa said, "Hey, woman, were you also immortal before you were an angel?" asked the destruction god of the sixth universe to his angel, who was beside himself, eating some of the ice cream that Whis had brought from his universe to her and Champa. Vados spoke. "Yes, all angels were once mortal, before we became children of the Daishinkan. When we angels were mortal, we had other names and lived other lives. For example, my name was Keon, and I was a woman married to a beautiful man whose name I no longer remember, and I even had a son with him. We were a happy family, but because of a race of conquerors, my family was killed. But I managed to survive thanks to the Daishinkan, who saw the potential of an angel in me. So I was chosen by him to become the angel of the sixth universe. But I wasn't the only one chosen," said the angel in a slightly happy tone when remembering her life as a mortal. Vados had a peaceful life until the day there was an invasion on her planet that ended up causing her husband and her son to be killed. Champa said, "Why did you never tell me that you were once immortal?" asked the god of destruction in a higher tone, as he always did when he was angry. Champa was irritated for not knowing that Vados had already been immortal before. Vados said, "You never asked me, so I thought it's unnecessary to reveal something like that to you. After all, the angels don't talk about this subject so liberally, as many of us didn't have a very good life when we were mortals like Kusu. She is an example, since she didn't have an easy life at all, but that's past. And even if they ask me anything about another angel's past, I won't speak, and not even the other angels will say anything about my past, including the Whis, because we all made a verbal agreement with each other thousands of years ago," said the angel while looking at Champa and then at Beerus, who looked at Whis, who just nodded in agreement with his sister's words. And with that, Beerus knew he would never know anything about the lives of other angels if they weren't the ones who revealed to the god of destruction. Goku said, "But if all the angels and brothers and Whis and Vados are practically twins, how would that be possible? After all, did you live in different universes or not?" asked the Saiyan, really confused about that subject, and how it would be possible for Whis and Vados to be twins. Whis said, "In the beginning, there were not 12 universes, but only one universe, and it was in this universe that all the angels and the first gods of destruction lived. Vados and I are twins, because we were twins from the beginning, when we were mortals, but when we separated from each other, and I ended up going to another planet, since the technology of that universe was very advanced, and luckily we both ended up becoming angels, and we only met when the Daishinkan officially made us angels." Whis spoke while looking at the Saiyan, who finally understood why he and Vados were twins. Beerus said, "Well, this is something interesting, but I think the main subject is not the story of Vados or the other angels, but the story of how you became an angel, Whis. After all, that was the main point for us, to get into this talk. But if you don't want to talk about it, we'll understand, because as Vados herself said, some angels didn't have a good life before they were angels," said the god of destruction of the seventh universe while looking at his angel. And even though Beerus wanted to know the story of the angel, Whis, the god of destruction, didn't want to pressure the angel Whis to tell him how he became an angel. Whis said, "I don't see any problem in telling my story, and even though it wasn't one of the best, it wasn't the worst of all either," said the angel while looking at everyone who at that moment paid close attention to the angel's words, except Vados, who already knew the history of his twin brother. In the sixth universe. Currently in the sixth universe, it was possible to see Goku, Vegeta, Champa, Vados, Beerus, and Whis all together around a table sitting. Everyone was paying attention to Whis, who would reveal how he became an angel, and not a simple angel, as one of the strongest among the 12 angels responsible for the universes and the gods of destruction. Whis said, "I don't know where I should start telling my story. Should I tell from the part where the High Priest chose me to be one of the possible angels, or should I tell my story before that happened?" asked the angel while thinking about which part of his mortal life he should start telling his story. Vegeta spoke. How about starting from the beginning, when you and Vados were separated? It would be more interesting to know the story from the beginning of everything, to know if your childhood was good or not," said the Prince of Saiyans, while looking at the angel who looked at Vegeta and thought a little about what the Saiyan said. Whis said, "Well, I didn't have an easy childhood, but I still don't feel bad talking about it, because it was thousands of years ago, and it doesn't affect me anymore. So I'll do as Vegeta said, and I'll tell you everything from the beginning," said the angel while looking at Vegeta and then looking at everyone else around him. Whis said, "Well, it all started when," said the angel, starting his story of when he was a simple mortal, who in the future would become one of the sons of the Daishinkan and one of the most powerful angels. Thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, even before the formation of all 12 universes, in a single universe it was possible to see a young baby who had just been born and was now in a nursery along with a baby identical to him. But the baby next to him, of the boy, was a girl, and she was his twin sister. The baby was called Keon, and next to him was his twin sister, Keon. Keon and Keon were in the nursery sleeping peacefully until a tall man with an athletic physique walked into the place where they were. The man, upon seeing the twins, took Keon in his arms and removed him from the place, leaving only Keon in the nursery. The man, after picking up Keon, left the hospital where they were, and in a silent and discreet way, the man took the baby to a spaceship far from the hospital, then started it and left the planet at high speed. After several hours wandering through outer space, the man reached a planet and landed his spaceship in a flat field on top of a castle. When the man landed his spaceship, he got out of it with Keon in his arms and went to a man who was sitting on a throne, and who would probably be the king of the planet or kingdom. The man then gave Keon to the king, who became sick when seeing the baby. Then the king made a gesture with his hand, and one of the guards took the baby, and the other gave money to the man, who smiled and left the place. The guard, upon picking up Keon, took him to a saddle with some women who were feeding some babies and left him inside. When the woman saw the baby, they ended up knowing why he was placed there. So one of the women ended up taking Keon and started breastfeeding him. And that way Keon grew until he was 5 years old. When Keon turned 5 years old, he ended up becoming a slave to that kingdom. And like any slave, Keon was obliged to do everything he was told to do, every day. And when he didn't do it, Keon suffered a punishment. But most of the time, he wasn't the one who suffered. And yes, the person that Keon called mother and the people he called brothers, because for someone as kind as Keon, seeing who he liked being hurt because of him was something much worse than being hurt by his jailers or the torturers. After 10 long years of being a slave, Keon ended up learning some important things, including the value of freedom and the pleasure of enjoying all kinds of food. Because as a slave, he was not able to eat tasty foods or that taste better than washing. Daily, Keon had to work in extremely hot places and do extremely heavy work for anyone to tolerate, and Keon was no exception. And because of the climate of the planet and the places he had to stay, Keon never wore a shirt, both because of the climate and also for the fact that he did not like to wear a shirt. And because of that, some of his scars were exposed on his back, which was the main place where he was punished, in addition to others such as the abdomen and chest. Keon, after all these years working as a slave, he was lucky enough to be chosen by the daughter of the king of the planet, what Keon was, and that way he ended up becoming a servant of the princess who would be the queen of the entire kingdom in the future. After Keon became the servant of the princess, who was called Mimi, Keon's life improved in several ways, and one of them was that Keon no longer needed to be afraid of being punished if he couldn't complete his daily work, because his new master was polite and kind to Keon, and even offered him a nice room with every luxury he could dream of. Keon worked for years serving Mimi in the best way he could, and that pleased the princess a lot, because Keon did things in an impeccable way. Keon didn't know, but Mimi was increasingly interested in him, but not as a servant but as a man. And even though the princess was the future queen and was already engaged to a prince from another planet, the princess still felt a lot of attraction for Keon, and the fact that he practically never wore a shirt was something that pleased the princess a lot. Keon only wore some top clothes when it was really necessary, but when he wasn't Keon, he didn't wear them because he didn't like to wear those clothes very much, and the hot climate of the planet didn't help a lot. And what most enchanted the princess was the scars he had that made him more attractive to the princess. Mimi was very fond of Keon, and she had already shown this several times over the years. But Keon never really cared about it because he knew that what Mimi felt was nothing more than desire and not love. And Keon was smart enough not to try relate to the princess, because if Keon did that, he would be hunted and killed not only by the king but also by the prince who was Mimi's groom and who did not know about his bride's attraction to Keon. Because if the prince knew, he would kill Keon ASAP. Mimi tried everything to make Keon feel desire for her. The princess had lowered herself several times to attract the attention of the man she desired. But she never managed to awaken Keon's desire, which in the eyes of the princess was too quiet, and that irritated her a lot. So the princess made a decision that either she would have Keon by hook or by crook. Mimi forced Keon to go to her room one night and said that she wanted Keon to be hers, and if he refused, she would kill him. But Keon, even being threatened with death, he refused to do anything with the princess, because if Keon had to die, he would at least die with his dignity intact. Mimi, seeing that she would never have the one she truly loved by her side, Mimi screamed, feigning despair, and seeing her plan, Keon ran at full speed out of the castle. And it didn't take long for the news that a mere slave had tried to abuse the princess. Keon was chased endlessly for days until some guards found him and entered into a conflict with him. But Keon, for having been a slave for years, ended up developing a certain degree of strength, and watching some soldiers fight over the years, Keon also ended up learning to fight, both unarmed and using a sword. So using the skill that Keon developed during these years, he ended up facing all the guards. But in the end, he ended up losing to the guards because there were many. Keon was only one. When Keon saw that he was very weak and that his death was already certain, Keon simply closed his eyes and waited for his death. But death never came. So gathering the little of his strength, Keon opened his eyes and saw that all the guards who were in the place were knocked out, and among them was a man with white hair and bluish skin. The man was wearing a strange blue outfit. The Daishinkan spoke.
"Looks like you finally woke, Keon. I will be brief. My name is Daishinkan and I am the High Priest, and I am gathering candidates to become angels, and also my children. And you are one of the candidates I have chosen. So I will give you two options. The first is for you to come with me and leave this place permanently, or I heal you and leave you here, where you will be hunted for the rest of your life. What's your choice?"
asked the being with white hair, revealing his name and why he was in that place. Keon said, "I don't have many choices anyway, so I accept to go with you. After all, if I stay here, I'll be dead in a short time," said the boy while looking at the Daishinkan, who just smiled at that. In the 6th universe, going back to the present time, we can see that Goku, Vegeta, Champa, Vados, Beerus, and Whis were still gathered around a table talking about Whis' past. Everyone was surprised by the life that the angel had led before meeting the Daishinkan, the High Priest. Beerus said, "So, you were called Keon when you were a mortal. And not only that, but you were also a slave who ended up becoming the servant of a princess who also ended up accusing you of trying to abuse her, just because you didn't want to spend a night with her, and that made her angry," said the god of destruction, trying to summarize what he understood about the history of the mortal life that Whis had. Vegeta spoke. "This mortal life of yours is much strange than I thought. When you said that you had already been a mortal, I thought of several forms of life that you could have. But being a slave, and that too of a princess, is something unexpected," said the Prince of Saiyans while looking at Whis, who just smiled in a simple way for him. Champa said, "Whis, when you were a slave, you ended up being hurt by your creator. And as you said, you ended up getting some scars. Could you show them?" asked the god of destruction of the 6th universe while looking at Whis. With that, we'll end today's video. If you want to see the continuation of this incredible story, leave a lot of likes in the video and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you another day, guys!